Welcome to another edition of the Hawk Off the Press podcast. I'm your host, Gazette Hawkeyes reporter John Steppe, back in Iowa now, and I am joined by our women's basketball reporter, Jeff Linder. Jeff, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I think right now you're the expert. You've seen him a lot more in the last week than I have.
Well, certainly a lot in Indianapolis there, and they played pretty much as good as you can ask for. And let's just start off with, okay, they cut the nets again. They had much better net cutting technique this time than they did in the regular season, basically the regular season championship game.
Yeah.
Technically not called that, where, they were cutting from the bottom there, and it's like, come on.
And I would think that that would have been, they would have kind of had some practice with that, some scripting. A lot of teams do that. They practice cutting the net, maybe at some point, maybe before the season starts. But that wasn't great technique at Carver, but I heard it was a lot better than Indianapolis. Girls cutting off the knots of the net at the bottom. That needs some work.
I don't think I've ever seen that, but they were very good technique-wise. You could tell they were in mid-season net cutting form.
Yeah.
They're cutting right there from the top. So it looks like how a net cutting is supposed to go. It seemed to go faster too, because they actually had a better idea of that technique. So, and probably one of the cooler things was Caitlin Clark and Monica Sinano cutting two pieces of the net and then giving one piece to a couple of their fans in Indianapolis. A couple of their young fans in particular. That's, it's a pretty cool moment there if you're one of those kids and you get a piece of the Big Ten tournament champion net.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, those girls are really good with kids. And they know where their fan base is. They know where the future of the game is, and they really do a nice job of including the younger generation and doing stuff like that. And that's really neat.
And we're already seeing a little bit of their impact in terms of the game growing, where that Big Ten semifinal game, the latest round that was on Big Ten Network, being the most viewed women's basketball game in Big Ten Network history. Iowa already broke the record for regular season Big Ten Network history.
People want to see this team, and they want to see Caitlin Clark. But I think what they really like to see is good, fast basketball. This isn't a team that pushes and shoves. It's definitely a finesse team. When it's going well, it's really pretty basketball. And I think people appreciate that and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I was talking to one fellow media member in Indianapolis that said, I was going to take the day off, but I couldn't miss seeing Caitlin Clark. Yeah. And I thought that spoke volumes there in terms of the media attention too, which is a big piece of the sport growing as well.
Yeah, and she's must-see TV. She's must-see in person, and I think their crowds at Carver next week are going to be huge.
Well, depending on they can break the record.
Yeah, depending on times, if they get a Saturday, Monday slot, anytime Saturday would probably be good. And then Monday, if they could get kind of a prime time. And I think ESPN is going to try to get them a good time slot.
Yeah. Well, when you see how exciting basketball they've played over the past week and really over the past month when they've really heated up, it's hard to pass up on giving them one of those better time slots compared to, your alternatives.
Right. So, we'll find out if they're a Friday, Sunday or a Saturday, Monday. And, maybe there'll be a Friday night prime time spot there and get a good viewing slot on Sunday, or also go Saturday, Monday. We'll see. And, there's a lot of other teams out there, other teams that people want to see as well. Plus, we'll be going head-to-head with the men's tournament.
Yeah. So that always adds to another component of it. In terms of seeding wise, last I checked, the latest ESPN bracketology has Iowa as a 3 seed. That seems to be the most likely destination now. I think I could probably see a path to a 4 or maybe a 2, but I think 3 is probably the most likely possibility at this point.
Yeah, they've got Iowa State as a 2 right now. And if they would get knocked out early in the Big 12 tournament later this week, that might be enough to get Iowa up into that last 2 spot. I'm not looking 2, 3, or they're not going to be a 4, I don't think. But I think what I'm looking at more is where will they go regional wise? Will they go, best? I think I'd rather have them be a 3 and go to Wichita than be a 2 and go anywhere else. But that's, that's me being selfish and wanting a shorter drive or shorter. It's not just me. I'm sure a lot of Iowa fans would love to go see them in the Sweet 16 if they get that far, and that would be doable if they would be a Wichita team.
And I think I saw earlier that one bracketology had Iowa as a 3 going to Bridgeport, Connecticut, and the 2 would have been UConn in that scenario. And that, I think, is the kind of exact picture of what you don't want to have.
I think it's more, if you don't want to go to Bridgeport and play Connecticut, then it's just being afraid of Connecticut this year. But I'll tell you, with Paige Becker's back, and they're playing with a full deck again, Connecticut's going to be a load. I've got them ranked number 5 in my last AP ballot, and I think they're starting to motor again. So you got to watch out for the Huskies.
And then it seems like for Iowa, over particularly this past tournament stretch, but even before that, Monica Sonano really seemed to step up in that tournament. And, Caitlin Clark ended up winning most outstanding player, but you can make a pretty strong case for Monica Sonano getting those honors as well.
When were those ballots due by? Were they new, or were they halftime of the championship game?
They were within 5 minutes. Yeah, it was due at the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter.
Okay. If I had a ballot, I probably would have gone with Monica Sonano. She was great. She was really, really good in the final. And that's not taking anything away from Caitlin. I imagine, I think Caitlin's reputation probably helped in some of the balloting. But
and statistically, the 41 points against Nebraska helped. Sure. Granted, you also had a lot of turnovers in that game. So,
yeah. But I probably would have gone with Sonano, but you can't argue with Clark either.
Yeah. And then, both of them got the all-tournament team recognition. I thought Kate Martin also should have gotten that recognition there. Each post-game press conference, Lisa Bluder just raved about Kate Martin. And, she said plenty of times, too, that Kate Martin's the glue.
She said that at the beginning of the season. When she was named a captain last year, I think that said a lot. And I've said this before. I don't know if I said it to you, but if there's a kid on this team who is D1 coaching material, it's Kate Martin.
Yeah, you could see it. And now it's even better that she's starting to show it a little more in the stat column than she was earlier in the year, where I think it was season highs in points and assists Friday, followed by career high in rebounds Saturday, followed by Sunday, almost reaching her season high in points again. Right. So the season high that she just set 2 days ago. So it was a pretty impressive weekend there for Kate Martin.
Yeah, she's on a really nice run right now.
I think one of my favorite Kate Martin moments from the tournament, though, was after Monica Sonano was called for the traveling in the semifinal game after that outlet pass. And Kate Martin said to the ref, this is the benefit of having good media courtside access here. Kate Martin said to the ref, let the big woman get away with that one. So that appeal did not work.
Yeah.
It gave me a good laugh.
Yeah, that's great.
So, and really the incredible thing I think about this team is you look at how they've been playing the past couple weeks. Now 6 straight wins, 4 against top 15 teams. I don't think you'd recognize that team if you were watching just say the IUPUI game or the first Northwestern game. Kind of a totally different team.
Yeah, it is. They've really got their groove going right now. They were at a low point midseason, and I think a lot of it had to do with being shut down for a while. They didn't get to go to Cancun. They lost a couple other games due to scheduling because of COVID. They came back, and for about 3 or 4 weeks, they weren't very good, and they've kind of gently and slowly got things going. And right now, they're where we thought they would be all season. And at some point, I'm going to go back and look through my AP ballots, just the parabola of starting. I think I started them at 8 or 9. And then there were probably 5 or 6 weeks I didn't have them in at all in the top 25. And now I think 1 week I brought them back in at 24 and then 21 and then 13 and now 8 or 9. So they just rocketed again. And, the sky's the limit for this team if they keep playing the way they are. But on the other hand, it just takes one game to send it all crashing too.
Yeah, that's I guess the beauty of March is, it could go one of 2 different directions there pretty quickly. And
I don't know if you were here yet. I know you weren't working in sports yet, but 3 years ago when they went to the Elite Eight, they darn near lost in the first round to Mercer. They were behind most of the game at Carver in front of 12 or 13,000 fans. And I just wonder if they had lost that game, how that would have changed the trajectory of this program. I mean, that would have been a catastrophic loss, in Megan Gustafson's senior year. And, something I'll probably touch on here in the next week, just, in an alternative universe, what happens if they lose that game? Maybe they don't get Caitlin Clark.
That alone would be a massive change in history there, considering already what Clark has done in 2 years. And, the question that I'm sure you've been hearing a lot, because I've been hearing even a lot in the last week, has been about Caitlin Clark and whether she goes pro. And then the thing that's different, people are used to these NBA rules for declaring early. It's a lot harder for a WNBA. And, she won't be able to.
NBA. And quite frankly, I don't know what she's getting, but I'll bet she's getting more in NIL money now than she would be getting with a WNBA contract right now.
Well, that Hy-Vee deal alone has to be a lot of money. They picked her as the first collegiate athlete to have an NIL deal with them. So I'm sure they put that financially as a priority there. So they seem to make her kind of their focal point there in this NIL new world.
Right.
So financially, that does change things a little bit. And, even if she wanted to go pro, she couldn't until 2024 unless she was to graduate in 3 years.
Right. And my guess, and I can't get inside her head, but my guess is she will play here for 4 years. I don't think she'll play for 5, even though she could. My guess is 4. I don't think she'll stop in 3. I think she's a 4-year kid.
And you think about it, they could go pretty far in these next 3 NCAA tournament runs. Of course, as you mentioned earlier, all it takes is one bad game.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really have too many gimmies anymore.
No. And the parity in the women's game is as good as it's been. You look at the projected pairings and, whoever they get in the first round is going to be decent. Probably better than Mercer was 3 years ago. Their second round opponent will be good. I think right now the 6th seed in there, the Iowa City sub-regional is Ole Miss, and they're very good. That's a team that I would have to play well to beat, even at home. So yeah, and, Sweet 16, certainly a possibility, but right now it's not a slam dunk.
No. And I think if they get hot, they could go even farther than Sweet 16. And I think that's a necessary step too, considering that, as much as locally, I think everyone sees Caitlin Clark has been putting up National Player of the Year level stats. Nationally, she hasn't quite gotten that recognition. And I think a deep postseason run can be the difference there.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think Caitlin Clark's hurt for attention at the national level. You see a lot of she's on a lot of the the little clips and the poster stuff that ESPN puts out. People know who Caitlin Clark is, and because of that, people know who Iowa is too.
Yeah. So I've been seeing Aaliyah Boston is right now kind of the national favorite, but we'll see what changes there.
Yeah, a lot depends on what happens. I'm not sure. I know I sent my AP All-American teams in today, actually, and I'm not going to tell you how I voted, but so I don't know. I think the deadline for voting for that is next Monday, so I assume those teams will come out sometime mid to late next week. I think a lot of that comes out before the tournament begins. I don't know when, the Wooden Award and some of that stuff. I think that all kind of trickles in throughout the tournament.
So that'll be interesting to see. And really, I think the other thing too, outside, we've talked about Clark, we've talked about Snano, talked about Martin. Some of those other role players seem to really step up in the tournament as well. Bluder pointed out in one of the games, I want to say it's the semifinal, but might have been, I'm pretty sure it's the semifinal, that Bluder said without Gabby Marshall's defense, Iowa doesn't win that game.
Right. She's a good defender. Tommy Taiwo is a good defender. And a lot of that goes unnoticed because people like to concentrate on points, me included.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you watch Kate Martin play defense, Tommy Taiwo, Gabby Marshall, the more you appreciate them. McKenna Warnock's not a bad defensive player.
Yeah. Another name there, and, saw her impact too, considering what Iowa has done since she came back. That said quite the impact too.
Yeah. And, they've been a different team since she came back. And, if they stay healthy, like I said, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. And the other kind of incredible thing too is usually it's okay when you've got a team this good, okay, here's your shot. They have pretty much everybody in terms of the major contributors coming back next year, which has to have the rest of the Big Ten on notice.
Before Sonata announced that she was coming back, I was thinking, it's this year. This year is the year that it can happen. But now this year might be a stepping stone for next year with Monica coming back, because that's huge. She's really good, and with the freshmen they've got coming in, I think Hannah Stolke's going to make an impact next year. The McCabe girl from Nebraska that's coming in, she's the all-time leading three-point shooter in Nebraska history. So they've got a lot of pieces, and it's going to be tough finding time for everybody. So, and that's not a bad problem to have.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's kind of the perfect problem to have. I don't think you'd want it any other way than that.
Right.
So,
yeah, I don't have a crystal ball for next year. I'm just trying to kind of focus on what's ahead here the next 3 weeks. But, the future is very, very good. Next year, it'll be tremendous, depending on the roster. I don't know. You never know who might come in or go out now. That's kind of the brave new world of college athletics. But 2023 could be a very special year, but so could this year yet.
And speaking of this year, with that attendance, Bluder thinks Iowa can break that 23,000 record from 2019. Do you see that being possible?
Sure. Again, it depends on times. People love to bring their kids to games, and if it's an 8:00 game on Friday, well, on Friday night, it's probably not a problem. But if it's if they play a Saturday game and then play an 8 or an 8:30 game on Monday night in the second round, that'll be tough. But I suppose a lot of parents will let their kids stay up a little extra late for a game like that.
Yeah, those games don't happen quite every day. And, it's a lot easier to do the 8:30 Monday night in Iowa City than the following weekend when the closest scenario is Wichita, Kansas.
Right. Well, that's why they have TVs.
Yes, I don't know. How long of a drive is it to Wichita?
6 or 7 hours. It's definitely drivable. And I think a lot of people will. I think there will be a good crowd down there. Could you imagine if Iowa's a 2 or Iowa State's a 3 and they both go to Wichita and or vice versa? And boy, that means they'd be playing each other. But
that'd be a hell of a game.
It would be. It would be a great game, and why not? Yeah,
that could be. Wow, that story writes itself practically leading into that one.
I'll tell you, if Iowa and Iowa State would both be at Wichita, knowing both fan bases, especially Iowa State's are a little closer and a little bit more rabid. That might be close to a sellout down there for a regional, which never happens.
Yeah. So this isn't like we're talking about some super far-fetched scenario. They're both likely going to be in that 2 or 3 conversation.
Yeah.
And both of them geographically would make the most sense there. That makes more sense in Greensboro or Spokane or Bridgeport, where all of those would be really long drives.
Yeah. And a lot depends on who the 1 seed would be. If Baylor would be the 1 seed at Wichita, that means Iowa State's not going to go there probably. That means they'll get shuttled somewhere else just because both are in the same conference.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. I'm not Charlie Cream. I'm not Joe Lenardi. I don't know what's going to happen. I think a lot is yet to be determined on what happens in the Big 12 tournament.
So you don't have the whiteboard behind you to, after every game, be changing things around?
It's a waste of time. I can't keep up with that. I don't know all the metrics. I know the net rankings are a big deal and the head-to-head and all that. But I'd be silly to say that I could come up with a bracket for women's basketball.
Well, going into the tournament, what do you think is the one biggest question for this Iowa team?
Can they defend? They did a great job defending in Indianapolis.
Nebraska, I think, was 3 for 26 or something from deep.
Yeah, and it's no surprise or no secret that their defense was bad last year. It really was. They gave up 80 points a game. What was it, 59, 66, and 67 in the 3 games in Indianapolis? That's really good. That's good enough. And Bluder said she's never going to have an A defense. They'll have an A offense, and if they have a C+ defense, that's going to be good enough. And they might have been better than C+ in Indianapolis. They might have been a B. So if they can do that, if they can defend, you got to like their chances because they can score on anybody.
Yeah.
I think another big thing is what's their draw going to be like? Can they avoid physical, rough teams because they don't match up well with those teams.
Yeah.
Maryland, even like a Rutgers, even though they're nowhere near being a tournament team. Ohio State, how long can they avoid playing an SEC team that's, not afraid to body around a little bit? I think that's a big factor in how far they can go.
Yeah, because you look at it in this recent stretch, the one kind of I don't know, divish on that resume of late was that Maryland game. And then since then, things have been smooth sailing. So we'll have to see, though, in, let's see, however many days Selection Sunday is. So about a week and a half, roughly. I'm not going to do any more math than that. But it'll be interesting to see. So, Jeff, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And thanks for pinch hitting in Indianapolis last week. And much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into another episode. I'll be back with another episode next week. Until then, we will talk Hawks later.